Hello everybody, my name is Colton. I run WizThrift on Instagram and YouTube, and I'm back with another creator interview. Today I am here with Michael from Feralborn Trading. Michael?
Hi, yeah, I'm Michael from Feralborn Trading. Some people might know me as Declan Feralborn. That was my character that the actual trading company was based on and actually originated out of a campaign. And I kind of took that as my pseudonym and went from there to create magic items, homebrew rules, share any kind of content that I just was inspired by or just wanted to kind of throw out there and get feedback on and collaborate on.
That's awesome. No, and you really do make a ton of fantastic items and homebrew rules. And I mean, I just wanted to ask, how did it all start with role-playing games?
I started playing role-playing games early, about sixth grade, actually.
Okay.
I moved into a small Texas town from the Midwest, and I was the new kid in school. And I just so happened to get lucky enough to sit next to another new kid who was a lot more well-read than I am. He was already reading, he had already read Lord of the Rings. I'd already read R.A. Salvatore, and I was a huge Star Wars, growing up, I was a huge Star Wars geek. And him and I started talking, became fast friends, partly because we were both ostracized.
Yeah.
And then he actually was the one, he knew somebody had played D&D and he kind of like introduced me to it. And then from there, him and I played solo campaigns for a good year before we got anybody else within 100 miles, that we knew to play. So
no, that's fantastic. I mean, isn't that what D&D is all about? Is just making friends and coming together. That's really awesome. So, dang. So you love Star Wars. You loved obviously most of the fantasy things. What do you think is your biggest inspiration when it comes to creating your content?
I mean, initially when I started playing, my inspiration was any movies.
Yeah.
I like stealing any kind of content, especially from 80s movies. I always like to throw those Easter eggs into items if I can, or into my campaigns. But now it's mostly my inspiration is either from actually playing. I try to play as much as possible or DM as much as possible and just kind of see what items come up in a campaign that actually would be useful in a moment or would help a character realize their persona or even to just introduce some kind of like new mechanic.
Yeah.
The stuff that I really key off on.
That's really cool. Dang. And how long have you been a dungeon master for?
Well, off and on, maybe, I don't know exactly years, but off and on for like 20 years. I had a break there for a while.
Yeah.
I played all through high school and part of college. Had a little bit of a break, was traveling, doing other random odd jobs and stuff like that, and didn't have anybody to play with. I would still do sometimes homebrew content and work on my homebrew setting just to kind of like scratch that itch.
Yeah.
And then I think it was about 4 years ago, I got reintroduced back into it. A friend of mine was like, "Oh, have you ever listened to Critical Role?" And I was like, "What's that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's D&D." And I was like, "Oh, I used to play D&D all the time." And then him and I started playing again. And my brother actually, who used to play with me as a kid, was living out here with me. And we all just started up another group again and introduced some new people to it. And it took off from there.
Dang, that's fantastic. It seems like so many people have gotten back into the game because of 5th edition. Like it's crazy. The past five maybe 6 years, the resurgence, kind of the renaissance of role playing games, not just D&D, but like just in general. Like so many people are started playing. Yeah. What's your favorite part of 5th edition that kind of pulled you into it?
I mean, I cut my teeth on 2nd edition.
Okay.
And used to play like, really crunchy mechanics and rules and like really deep into that and really gritty games. When we started playing 5th edition, I kind of took up the responsibility of learning the rules and trying to translate those to everybody else. And I just found it really intuitive.
Yeah.
There were certain things that I was like, well, should probably work this way. Mm-hmm. And then it did. But for me, I found that there's enough there to allow the DM to still have freedom to translate the rules as they see fit. Yeah. And then enough room also, it really lends itself to homebrew, to being able to kind of run on the fly. And it just seems you spend a lot less time looking at a rule book and a lot more time just having fun. And it's okay sometimes to just kind of run with that and make rules on the spot. So
yeah, no, that is probably one of the best things about it is it's so player friendly and it's easy to make up rules and play test them and stuff. And it really is a fantastic game. Yeah. Well, one of my questions was about your art. How long have you been an artist for?
It's going to sound funny, and I don't mean this like in a bad way, but I don't necessarily even feel like I'm an artist now.
I knew you were going to say that. I was like,
I've always been sketch.
Yeah. He's going to be humble about it. Oh.
No, I've been sketching and stuff like that my whole life, and I've always wanted to be able. I mean, that there's so many artists out there now that so many I can hardly name them all, that I just admire all the things they create, and I always look at that. Sometimes I'm like, I should just stop. Like maybe I can talk to one of them and I'll let them draw the pictures and I can do the mechanics. But basically, I've always been doing it as a hobby. I always doodle. Even if I'm at my other job in a serious meeting, I'm always doodling something and just kind of screwing around. But most of the time, I just want to draw something that it at least looks presentable enough to convey the mechanics I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, and I don't know if this is the case or not, maybe it's just my own bent, but I feel like I'm more comfortable with that, and I have more to offer in that arena. So I usually just kind of make the mechanics first and then just try to draw something that looks at least halfway decent in order to stick those mechanics with it and throw it out there.
Yeah. Well, let me just tell you, it's not halfway decent. Your art really is fantastic. Like we were kind of talking about before we started, you have this like a gritty, realistic thing, and you said, you want it to be somewhat practical, that it could actually exist. And I think you get that across really well, even from the very beginning of the stuff that you've been posting.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like, I don't mind silly items and stuff like that, and I don't mind comedy one-shots and things like that. I still have fun with that, but I like my campaigns to be, even if they're high fantasy, like we were talking earlier, I like it grounded in reality, and I want to feel like a sense of like connected to the world, and it not be so far out there that I couldn't actually see myself being stuck in that situation or in that position. Yeah. And so it's most of the items, I can't say all of them, but most of the items I like to kind of be like that too. Like, how would somebody actually wield this? Mm-hmm. Would this actually work? Even if you add the tagline, well, it's magic, then so that can kind of push you a little in that direction.
Yeah. No, I think what pulled me to your content and your page was actually the items that you did based on the Mandalorian. So like the Eldritch Blaster and then the armor and everything like that. I saw that on Pinterest and I was like, dude, this is pretty cool. And I've always loved the idea of like a wand that's actually shaped like a gun. I don't know, it's just been always really cool to me. And so I like that you've been able to mix, like this popular media in with D&D, and obviously guns are realistic. So if you make it look like a gun, make it shoot like a gun, it's kind of like a gun. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that sometimes, and I maybe still do this to some point, but sometimes I would create stuff, especially early on. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if anybody ever would use it, and I didn't necessarily ever really sometimes had any intention for it to be used, other than I just thought it was kind of a cool challenge to try to convey things from a movie or things from a TV show mechanically in D&D, and if you could make it work and see if you could translate it without making it completely like a broken item.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think
it was just kind of.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's just like part of the fun. That's for me. That's playing D&D, creating homebrew, making homebrew settings, doing anything associated with that is part of playing D&D, in my opinion. So.
Yeah. And I think as a dungeon master, you have to kind of be good at everything. But if you can add art into it to actually give to your players and show them, hey, this is what this looks like to the best of my abilities, I think that's an amazing skill. Even if you feel like you're not a real artist or whatever, I think that it's fantastic that you can take these items that are from your mind and essentially turn them real. So I think it's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, nothing. I think it's really cool to think that the items are kind of out there in the world, and maybe somebody I don't know is using an item, and maybe that's creating memories in their campaign, and it kind of gives it a weird, like, becomes canon in their homebrew setting, and now it kind of has this weird immortality out there in the world. It's like kind of on a very, very, very small scale, kind of like the feeling I imagine people that make movies or TV shows or anything like that gets. They get to share something, and maybe that elicits an emotional response from somebody.
Yeah. No, actually, I'm working on a video about the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian subclass. And I had a friend of mine who I really like the way he does the voice acting in his videos. I had him kind of read my short story to bring it to life, and hearing that, I actually got an emotional reaction, because I'm like, oh man, this is something I created. Like, I wrote this story, but they brought it to life, and it's a fantastic feeling. Even if it's not like, I know not many people are going to see it, but it feels so good that something that I've created is going out in the world and can be appreciated, at least by a few people. So
yeah, that's why I also like put, 99.9%, if not 100% of my content online for free. And anybody that contacts me from from a stream, whether it be or a home game, whatever, I'm like, all this is free to use, and I hope it gets used. Like, nothing makes me happier if it gets used. And if somebody puts it on a stream or a podcast, I like, I'm there listening, and I'm geeking out when they listen to it and cringing when they find something that I've messed up on because it's broken or the mechanics didn't work how expected. So
no, I remember it was months ago. I think it might have been back in March or April, but I was working on this one shot / just like activities for this Kickstarter, and I remember I messaged you asking if if you had anything, and right away you got to me and you're like, hey, you can use this. And it was just, I think that's such a fantastic quality in not just artists or creators, but people, to just share without malice and just share without expecting anything in return.
That's one of the things. When I first initially started sharing, I kind of threw it out there, mainly because my brother and some other friends were kind of goading me into do it. And so I started sharing the items, and really quickly other creators started liking things. And I didn't know how the space was going to be. You never really know. I came into it anonymous because I was like, I don't want to be prejudged. I don't want to be trolled. I don't want to have to deal with that negativity. I'm just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
And I have not had a negative experience from any people that follow me online or any of the other creators I've met. Especially from the creator community, all of them have been super kind, encouraging, inspiring. And have gave you, instead of being competitive, they're like trying to boost you up and raise you up and show you the tricks of the trade and that sort of thing, and give you good, helpful hints. So
no, that's one reason why I love doing these interviews and meeting people. Is it's fun, and people who play D&D, I don't know if it's just D&D or just the type of people that it attracts, but most of the time they're very supportive and they're very kind, and they want, like you said, they want to see you succeed. So I 100% want.
I mean, just stay off some of the Reddit boards.
Yeah.
It's like, some of that's like, gatekeepy, and guys are, like old school versus new school. And, some people just want to tear your stuff down or call it broken without giving any real constructive criticism. I usually just try to, let that slide off and kill it with kindness and move on.
No, I mean, that's it's the best way to live, because even when I have gone onto Reddit to try and, or even, other forums, whatnot, to try and get help, most of the time people are super negative, or they just try and shut you down. And I've found that at least with Instagram and some YouTube, it's much easier to find people who will actually look at it and tell you, okay, this is broken, or, that's, people probably wouldn't use that because it's too weak or whatnot.
Yeah. And I put my stuff on Reddit almost all the time. I like to kind of throw it in. I call it the meat grinder. I like to throw it out there and see, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to throw it to people out there. And there's I get actually a lot of good feedback and not that much negativity on there usually. But I also always preface it by, this is playtest material, that your DM can adjust this at any time. I might be wrong. This is how I intend for it to work. I might have missed something. Please give me feedback. Please be harsh. Please critique it. And I think when you open that up and you tell people to be harsh and critique it, a lot of times it kind of like squelches it. They don't want to be harsh. They want to be helpful, because they're like, oh, it's not going to bother him if I just get on there and try to troll him because he already is asking for it. Kind of.
That's a good point. I mean, that's definitely a lesson that I probably have learned, but now you kind of lit it up for me, so now I understand it a lot better. Yeah. Well,
Well, and most of the people, right, that usually say, "Hey, this item is broken" or "This mechanic is broken," usually don't. They're saying that, but then you ask them, "Well, why is it broken?" And they can't explain to you
yeah,
why. It's just their knee jerk reaction. Or you can do things like post. You could post a Hexblade reflavored
yeah,
on Reddit, and everybody would probably be like, "That is the most broken subclass ever." You know, so it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
they're not. You know, they sometimes are more biased towards official content too. So.
yeah. No, I definitely agree. Well, I actually, since we're getting towards the end, I have a few questions about your spells. So the three spells: paper cut, salt in the wound, and freeze tag. I think
Yeah.
like you're talking about, being gritty and all these things. These are actually kind of silly spells that
Yeah.
I think are effective and actually kind of scary if you could just give somebody a paper cut. And freeze tag is obviously very, very dangerous if you could actually freeze somebody. But where did you get like the inspiration for these spells? How did they come to be?
The spells I particularly wanted them to be, most of them to be kind of funny,
Yeah.
and play off the mechanics of like childhood games or just things I thought would be like really terrible to do to someone. But most of them were, and I do this sometimes with items. Sometimes I'll imagine a character in my head
Uh-huh.
and then ask myself what items, or in this case spells, would fit a character of that archetype. So for a lot of the funnier spells, I had a character NPC that I've also sometimes played in one shots named Jaffe Ryder, and he's a lore bard, and he's kind of crazy. He's a know-it-all. He usually, even after somebody uses an inspiration dice, he uses it as like, says something as they're using it, like, "I told you to choke up on your sword. I told you to do this." And he's just kind of a funny, alcoholic bard kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what spells would be fun for him? What can I reflavor, reskin? And then what spells would just be kind of fun for him to use? So that's how a lot of the items come up too. I'm like, well, what if I made, a really edgy rogue, that followed the Raven Queen or something, what would they use? Or stuff like that. So
yeah. And I mean, speaking about your rogue, there's some really, really cool items, especially the Raven Maiden's accoutrements?
accoutrements.
Accoutrements. Yeah. I don't think I've read that word, so I learned a new word today. What does that mean? Is that just like an outfit?
Yeah, like your adornments or your adornments, the things you decorate yourself with, or
Dang. Yeah. And they're so cool. I don't care like what you say about not being a real artist or whatever. Your stuff is just, it's cool and it's fun, and I think it stands out on its own as well. I think it really does.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just and I don't mean that negatively. I just look at there's a lot of the other artists out there that I admire, like Aggie from Loot Tavern, Haas from Dungeon Scribe, the artist that does Fantastic Emporium. I see a lot of their art and I think, wow, I couldn't draw that. Mm-hmm. I couldn't make that from scratch like they did. They just they look like it just like they sat down and could knock that out in like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. I have to like look at real world references and like draw, find a picture and look at it while I'm drawing, or find some real life object, or all the hands that I use and almost all my items are me like going like this, or, I'm looking at my own hand or taking a picture of my hand and trying to draw it, so I'm like, and maybe that's just a different style, but I look at theirs, I'm like, okay, that's legit artists, and I'm okay. I'm okay with my space where I fit in.
No, and I totally get it. I just like telling people how awesome they are and what they're good at, and
appreciate it.
And you're good at your art, but you also just seem like a very kind person, a very nice person, and you're, like you said before, Jox Machina. You just look really jacked as well. So
thanks. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, we're all doing this for fun, right? So, and I mean, even when I was a kid, I'd be in high school and I'd play football on Fridays. On Saturdays, when everybody else was out going partying, my group was playing D&D. So it's like, I think there's a space for everybody in there, and I think all kinds of sorts of people can sit at a table and have a great time. Those games, so.
Yeah. Dang. Well, Michael, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I truly appreciate you sitting down with me. It's been fantastic.
Well, I appreciate it too. And we still need to make some items together. We need to like come
I
up
know.
with either a class or an item or even a homebrew mechanic something. It'd be fun to especially at this point, I'm all about collaborating or somebody telling me to make something so I have a deadline, because now it's fitting it into busy lives and schedules. I'm willing,
No, I actually I'm working on a setting. So it's based off of kind of like a casino / like a play area. So I'll get back to you, and because there's some stuff that I've been working on. So we
definitely need to talk about that, because I got some ideas along those lines too that I'd like to. It's always fun to bounce ideas off people and be like, "Am I even going down the right track on this?"
Yeah. No, I mean, I wish we had more time, because I want to talk about your panto math and everything, but I gotta let you go. But
next time,
for sure. Well, Michael, thank you again. It has been a pleasure. What do you want to shout out? What do you want to talk about at the end?
Oh, I don't know. Have fun. If you want to go to Instagram, I'm at Feralborn Trading. Feel free to shoot me ideas. I'm happy. I always pick, when I have time, I always pick random ideas that people shoot me, and a lot of those end up back on Instagram with credit and everything. And everything's for free on D&D Beyond too. So have fun with it and let me know what's broken and what created memories. That makes my day.
Nice. Well, hey, even if it's broken, we should still use it, because sometimes it can be really fun when you have a spell that does way too much or an item that does way too much damage.
Yeah. And the DM rules, feel free to fix it. None of that's written in stone.
Awesome. Well, again, Michael, thank you. And I hope you have a fantastic night, and good luck with everything.
You too. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'll see you later.
Bye.